So today I'm talking about the beautiful Christopher Ward 12 and what makes it such a special watch. It was not sponsored by Christopher Ward at all. So we're talking about the Christopher Ward 12, the manufacturer of these shirts, this Italian manufacturer called Cordon that I've really been buying lately and I really love. And then finally, the Rolex Day-Date, Pelé, the greatest soccer player to have ever lived, and a collection, an item, a framed item that my dad got me when I was about 8 years old that I still, just treasure and walk past all the time. And it means the absolute world to me. So you're going to get a Rolly story by the end of this. So let's start off with the 12. This is, I think, one of the coolest releases of the last decade. It is not completely an original design. Obviously, the 12 is somewhat, at least, a derivative of Japex and Tartique. The two watches, to my understanding, don't just share some design cues, but even some personnel that were behind them, which I think is really interesting. But this watch really, what it did to the watch world, it made consumers really look in the mirror and start to say, where do these big brands, the luxury brands, get their pricing strategy from? Where do they come up with these numbers? $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for stainless steel, watches, sports watches, integrated bracelets. Where are these numbers? Because they seem, as brought out by the 12, to be high and arbitrary. Is the Royal Oak $35,000 or whatever $1,000 watch, is that in any way justified in the material, or is it that much more in branding? Am I paying $35,000 for a watch that otherwise should be $8,000? And I'm paying that huge delta just because it says AP, right? And I think that I'm not necessarily saying that is the case, but that's certainly the question that this watch brought into the world. And what I think is interesting is it came at a good time. The 12 came out in 2023, which is, after obviously this big COVID boom in watches, particularly in integrated sports watches, where everyone started to say they were the greatest things ever, which was never true. The level of praise that those watches, the integrated sports watches got, whether it's from IWC, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Piaget, if that's even a good one, Girard-Perregaux, the amount of praise that those watches were getting, I don't think was proportionate to, the quality of the watch themselves. It's not to say the watches weren't good, but they were being treated as if they were the kings of the watch world, and that just isn't the case. There are watches that far better exemplify, embody luxury than, these integrated sports watches. Not to say they're not great, but come on, right? They're not the kings that we treated them, to be. And I think the 12 really brought that out. At around $1,400, they do go up from there, but around $1,400, you're getting a hell of a piece. Great quality of construction in the bracelet, level of finishing in the dial, movement, everything about these watches feels solid. And it's from a great brand. It's not from nobody. Christopher Ward isn't nobody. And now they've really been killing it with, whether it's their, the 12 titanium, which comes in the skeleton, that I think is unbelievable. I think that's a heck of a watch. You can also, look at the Bel Canto, which is an unbelievable piece that I really, really love. You could look at the new C12 Loco, and this video is not sponsored in any way by Christopher Ward, by the way. I've actually never taken sponsorship from Christopher Ward, so this is just completely me giving credit where credit is due. These watches in this collection really, pointed out or kind of introduced the watch world into a little bit of introspection. Are any of these prices rooted in fact? Are they really founded? Are they based in any logic, or are they just ridiculous? So anyway, I think this is a great piece. Again, of course, derivative of the Japex, but I don't think that's a problem at all. I think that being derivative of a Japex is much different than being an homage to the Submariner, right? In one case, it's a very, very niche piece of knowledge. In the other, you're wearing a watch that, while could be great, is of course trying to be the Sub, which is like the most, ubiquitously like a luxury, watch ever. So I really, really love this piece. I also loved, by the way, their brand language when they released this, when they held the mirror into the watch world and said, "What are these prices?" Right? The language was stainless steel. But S-T-E-A-L, right? Stainless steel. It's a steel. It was great. So I really, really like this watch, and I will give it back to Sam in just a minute, but I wanted to talk about it for a second today. Second brand, Cordon, is a shirt brand that I've been wearing for a couple of months now. They're great. I got into their linen. I actually only own their linen shirts, and this is a good example of one with this sort of Campi Maui or whatever collar that has been popularized lately by Loro Piana, but I don't think it was founded by them by any means. This Cordon has been around since 1956, I believe. Still a family-run, small business. They do ship everywhere. Again, this is not a sponsorship with them by any means. I just really like their shirts. I don't think that these are like, from my opinion, they're not just like daily, everyday linens. I have far more like worn in, kind of beat up, linen shirts from whether it's J. Crew or Ralph Lauren or Brooks Brothers that are a little bit, they're less formal. These are, I wear them to dinner. I wear them when I want to feel really, really great, when I'm going to go out and take my mom to dinner. I'm going to go wherever the heck, a business meeting where I feel that maybe that like kind of crunchy, my old weathered Ralph Lauren one is maybe a little bit casual. It looks like I was running to the supermarket. These are like, no, I'm going to go to a really nice dinner and have a beautiful martini and I want to feel good about it, So anyway, I love Cordon. They come in great, colors. I got my dad one in yellow, I have blue, I have other blues, I have a bunch. So anyway, I know we used to talk about clothing a lot more on this channel and wanted to bring it back just a little bit. Cordon, go take a look at them. Again, not by no means sponsored, but definitely take a look. And last but not least is my framed collection of World Cup posters, but in a card format. My dad gave me this for my birthday in, I believe, 2004. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And my dad and I, long before we bonded over work and, entrepreneurship and wine and going out to dinner alone, right, long before that, the one thing that my dad and I had in common, apart from thin arms and an adversity to hard labor, was soccer. My dad and I watched soccer all the time together, and we talked about soccer, incessantly. I'm very much looking forward to doing the same with my son, God willing, at some point, someday. And it was a beautiful, beautiful part of my childhood. I remember collecting, like the soccer cards. I remember, I just remember, chasing after the commercials and watching them on repeat. We actually did a full podcast about those, commercials back from 2005, 6, 7, Nike, Adidas, with the greatest players in the world, the kings of the world. And it was an electric moment, and it was a moment that I don't think will ever happen again. There was a humility to those players at the time, and at the time we didn't understand that, right? We thought that they were the biggest egotists, but now when we look at celebrities, we look at, sports figures, they are, they're being paid tremendous amounts of money, and they're the biggest stars in the world. They're flying in their private jets. Back then, they used to fly first class, and you used to see them, they would participate in the commercial because they enjoyed it, and what they had going was electric, and it was just a very specific moment in history that was, I think electric is a good way to put it. If you were there, you remember. And anyway, my dad got me, my mom and my dad, but this gift was definitely more for my dad just because, it was a soccer thing. Not to say my mom didn't get me soccer gifts, because she did, but this was a specific Rolly thing. It really was. He got me my collection of World Cup poster cards back from 1930, the original World Cup in Uruguay, and he framed it, and professionally framed from a local framer, so it wasn't inexpensive. And I remember at the time, not really, I loved it. It was my favorite collection. It was my thing, and I just remember not particularly understanding why it was better framed than in my hand, because I used to look at them all the time, and now I can't even begin to explain, not to dramatize it, but I can't even begin to explain how much better they are framed than they would have ultimately ended up in my hand. Because in my hand, they would have probably gotten lost at some point, or they'd be in a drawer somewhere. I was pretty meticulous, so maybe they'd be in a drawer somewhere. I'd never see them. But instead, it framed, and again, it wasn't cheap. I'm sure it was $300 to frame, $300-$400. Framing's very expensive, and it's matted and framed. And now I see it every day, or I see it anytime I pass it on my wall. And I think of my dad, and I think of not just my dad, not just soccer, but I also just think of, and I've talked about this a lot, particularly on the Zero, which is our private podcast community. Go and sign up and listen to our exclusive content. And so many of my greatest memories of childhood remain the World Cup, right? And it wasn't just the World Cups, but the World Cup, right? Once every 4 years, and this amazing thing happens. The world sort of stops, and people from all different backgrounds and cultures, particularly, people from all different backgrounds and cultures, everyone, it's like a bunch of nationalists, which is not a dirty word. Everyone was so proud to be from where they're from, get together peacefully and celebrate for this thing. And it's beautiful. And there's nothing bad about it at all, right? The Brazilians wear their canary yellow and cheer, right, in the same bar as the Brits, right, are hoping they don't mess it up, you know? And the Brits have bad teeth and the Brazilians have better food, and then they're all sharing it, and, you know, the bad breath and the fried meat, and it's fun. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment of competition and sharing of culture and high stakes, you know? And I think what's so cool about sports is not just soccer, but sports in general, is because you're emotionally invested in something, there's no like financial loss, but you are still gambling. Like, you're emotionally gambling, and you get that like adrenaline that I would imagine that a gambler gets, but you get it in a much more healthy manner, right? I mean, in 2006, when Alessandro Del Piero won against Germany, and I think it was the quarter of the semifinals, in the 121st or 22nd minute, I remember, never forget where I was. I was in Montauk with my family at this bar called Nick's at the time, and I definitely shouldn't have been there. I wasn't old enough, but I wasn't drinking, obviously. And he, you know, my uncle turned to me and said, "Why the frick are they putting in Del Piero? Like, at this point," because they just put him in. They're like, if they put him in, like, if this guy scores, then fine, I'll never talk bad about him again, but I'm so done with him right now. Sure as shit, Del Piero scored, and I remember jumping, and I wasn't the thinnest kid in the world. I was kind of chubby. I remember jumping into my uncle's arms, like, how we fucking did it, you know, Del Piero. Anyway, you know, then make it back to a watch-related thing. You know, 2002 World Cup, when Brazil won, you know, which is the last, 2002 is the last one that I have in my little collection there, in Ronaldo, right? Brazilian Ronaldo, phenomenal, right? Had the stupid little haircut with those big buck teeth, and you know, Pelé hugged him at the end, and Pelé being, of course, I would say the greatest soccer player to have ever lived, and part of that is because no one apart from Portuguese people knows who Eusebio is, and Maradona is a drug addict, and I think he's an asshole communist, and I won't give him credit for anything. So that's it. So Pelé is the guy, and he gives a hug to Ronaldo, and Pelé's wearing a 1803 Day-Date, and it's just, I mean, talk about respect, passing of the torch, right, of this great cultural tradition. Soccer, obviously, in Brazil, they're the champions then, obviously more than now. But it was this beautiful moment, and who better represents the Day-Date than Pelé? Right, the greatest player, right? Player that built soccer in America. Is there a player? I mean, think about it. Not just in respect to soccer or America, but think about the people who built a sport. It's hard, right? The list isn't very long. There are remarkable players, yes, in different sports, respectively, but think about players that had truly remarkable impact on not just like their fans, but the sports infrastructure, the sports development, right? So he's the king in so many ways, right? El Rey, and he gives a hug, and he was wearing the Day-Date. It's like, of course you're wearing the Day-Date, you know, of course you are. I'm a big fan, not just of being sentimental and being careful and being specific in watches, in acting with intent in watches, but in decor as well. I'm really big into that. I have meaningful items. That's my thing. I collect meaningful things, and I like showing them, not to people, but I like to walk around my space and see them. You know, I have friends, and if some of them are watching this, that, you know, have great watch collections, seemingly thoughtful watch collections, and yet, you know, work in spaces that are awful. Peter, if you're watching, and I don't understand how that exists, because if you are so particular, how could you not want how could you not be OCD about your space? If you claim you are that and other things. I don't think that OCD or whatever, maybe that's a term we use loosely today in language, but I don't think that it could be just confined to like one thing, or, you know, just one thing. I think it's a thing you have and apply throughout, you know, in general, you know. But anyway, as opposed to just making this a criticism of other people's lack of OCD, I will say I am an advocate for not just sentimentality and intention in watch collecting, but also in general in your life. I think it feels good to walk into your home and see beautiful, meaningful things from your childhood or from your family or from where you're from, right? I have photos of my parents growing up in my apartment, right? And one day my son or daughter, God willing, again, they will see this, you know, this little World Cup thing, and they'll treasure it because it's like a meaningful heavy, like it's a thing of emotional weight, as opposed to just some frame thing from Home Goods that nobody gives a shit about, that says some bullshit platitude on it or whatever, some cheeky thing. It's like a thing. It's like a real thing that means something to you and someone else, or you and your expression of who you are. And anyway, I think it's really great, and this is a really beautiful thing. So, as with all episodes of this new series, which we are still calling Three Treasures, and I hate that stupid name. I just haven't thought of anything better. If you have a better idea, comment down below. It's the same strategy, right? It's, material analysis, watches, our vice, our dirty vice, then another material item that I could share with you, because it's I have those things to share because I'm a very avid consumer, and then finally something sentimental that rounds it all out and reminds you all, I hope, to be sentimental, to care, to fill your life with things that you love. And that's it, my friends. God bless you all. Have a great day, and I'll see you all soon.